For thousands of years, humanity has carried the memory of a great flood. From the Bible's tale of Noah to ancient Mesopotamian, Indian, and even South American legends, the story echoes across time. Water rising, lands vanishing, and civilization washed away. But what if it wasn't just a myth? What if these stories trace back to a real catastrophe, one so massive it redefined geography and buried a thriving culture under the sea? In the depths of the Black Sea, off the coast of Bulgaria, divers and scientists are uncovering the secrets of a sunken world, a civilization lost, a flood forgotten, and perhaps the real story behind Noah's Ark. It starts with a myth, or perhaps it starts with a memory, faded, fragmented, distorted by time. A tale passed down from generation to generation of a world swallowed by water, of cities lost, of people forced to flee as the oceans claim the land beneath their feet. Almost every ancient culture has such a story. The Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of a man warned by the gods. Hindu scriptures tell of Manu, who builds a great boat after a fish warns him of the coming deluge. Even in the highlands of Peru, long before Christianity arrived, people told tales of a magical llama that foresaw a flood and led a family to safety. All these stories, separated by vast oceans and thousands of miles, all pointing to the same haunting idea, that once long ago, the world drowned. But stories alone are not evidence. Myths can be powerful, yes, but to uncover the truth, we need more. That journey begins not in ancient texts, but beneath the waves off the coast of Bulgaria. Here at the edge of the Black Sea, a quiet revolution in our understanding of history is taking place. From the surface, the Black Sea is serene, calm, blue, stretching endlessly toward the horizon. But beneath that placid surface lies something extraordinary, a mystery that could rewrite what we know about our ancestors. The theory is as fascinating as it is controversial, that over 7,000 years ago, the Black Sea was not a sea at all, but a massive freshwater lake, ringed with fertile land and home to a thriving civilization. Then came the flood. After the last ice age ended, glaciers melted and global sea levels began to rise. The Mediterranean, swelling with water, finally breached the narrow land bridge that is now the Bosporus Strait. In an instant, geologically speaking, salt water began to pour into the Black Sea basin. It wasn't a trickle, it was a deluge. Scientists estimate that over 14,000 cubic miles of water surged through that gap, raising sea levels by hundreds of feet and drowning more than 60,000 square miles of land. Imagine the roar of water, the ground trembling, the sky dark with storm, and whole villages swept away. It would have seemed like the end of the world, and perhaps for those who lived through it, it was. This is the heart of the Black Sea deluge theory. First proposed by marine geologists Bill Ryan and Walter Pittman in the late 1990s, it suggests that the sudden inundation of the Black Sea basin could be the origin of the Great Flood myths. They even used sonar mapping to identify what appeared to be ancient shorelines far below the current sea level. Ghostly traces of a lost world. But theories require evidence, and that brings us to a man who has been diving these waters for more than 30 years. Constantine Stereo. A seasoned diver and underwater explorer, Constantine has dedicated his life to uncovering traces of what he believes is a submerged chapter of human history. Working alongside veteran dive master Nick Adov, they've spent countless hours scanning the Black Sea floor, searching for signs of habitation, Fragments of pottery, tools, structures, anything that might tell the story of the people who lived here before the sea rose. One of their most promising sites lies just offshore in the Gulf of Varna. The water is cold, visibility is often poor, and currents can be strong, but the divers press on. Slowly, methodically, they scan the seabed. Then, there it is, half buried in the silt, a fragment of pottery. It's worn, weathered, but unmistakably shaped by human hands. Other pieces follow, more ceramics, scattered debris. Some may be Roman, others perhaps Neolithic. It's tantalizing, but not yet definitive. What Constantine really wants, what he's been searching for, is evidence from before the flood. And then he shows us something remarkable. Not underwater, but safely stored. A carved disc of sandstone, retrieved years ago from 25 miles offshore. It's circular, marked with strange patterns, worn with age. Sandstone can't be carbon dated, and it holds no organic residue. But its location, so far from the current coast, in a place that would have been dry land before the deluge, raises serious questions. Could it be a relic from a lost civilization? Something ceremonial, perhaps, left behind by a people who vanished beneath the sea? Constantine is cautious. He knows that every claim must be scrutinized, but his eyes gleam with a quiet certainty. He's seen the underwater landscape, the slopes that were once riverbanks, the flat plains that may have been villages. The ocean has buried much, but not everything. And with the right equipment, with time, more can be found. To understand just how advanced these ancient people may have been, we head inland to the city of Varna. It was here in the 1970s that construction workers digging foundations made one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Varna necropolis. Within the burial site, archaeologists unearthed something no one expected: the oldest known gold treasure in the world. Over 6,500 years old, the gold of Varna predates the pyramids of Egypt. Over 3,000 intricately crafted items were found: bracelets, scepters, beads, headdresses, together weighing more than 13 pounds. But this wasn't simple decoration. The gold was found in carefully arranged graves, some with clear indicators of social hierarchy. One skeleton was adorned with such wealth that experts believe he was a chieftain or priest king. This was no primitive tribe. This was a complex hierarchical society with metallurgy, trade networks, spiritual beliefs, and an understanding of art and aesthetics. Dr. Hristo Smolenov, a seasoned Bulgarian archaeologist, guides me through the findings. He holds up a delicate golden ornament, tiny but flawless. Its craftsmanship is precise, elegant. They were not savages, he says. They were advanced, sophisticated, and then they disappeared. What happened to them? There is no sign of a gradual decline. No war, no famine evident in the burial patterns. They flourished, and then they were gone. Could this be the civilization that once lived on the shores of the freshwater Black Sea? Did they flee as the waters rose, leaving behind only what they couldn't carry? Or did some of them stay, hoping the tide would recede, only to be swept away? As we examine the gold, a chilling thought emerges. If a people this advanced were swallowed by the flood, what else might lie beneath the sea? Cities, temples, written records, whole chapters of history drowned and forgotten, and perhaps only now beginning to be remembered. The story isn't just about geology or gold or ancient pottery. It's about a moment when the world changed, suddenly and violently, when nature reshaped the map and in doing so, gave birth to stories that would outlast even the memory of the people who first told them. The flood is more than a myth. It is a thread woven through our collective past, waiting to be unraveled. One dive, one artifact, one lost shoreline at a time. In the heart of the sea, silence reigns. But in that silence, a story is waiting. A story buried under centuries of silt and salt water. A story that has begun to emerge, not in headlines or grand declarations, but in quiet discoveries, each more compelling than the last. In recent years, technology has given archaeologists the power to see what the eye cannot. Through the use of advanced sonar imaging, remotely operated submersibles, and geophysical sensors, the floor of the Black Sea is no longer a void. It is a landscape. And on that landscape, there are clues, structures, alignments, and anomalies that should not exist beneath so much water. Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, was among the first to take this theory seriously. In the early 2000s, Ballard led a team into the depths of the Black Sea using deep-sea submersibles equipped with high-resolution cameras and sonar. What they found astonished even the most skeptical observers. The remains of a wooden structure, clearly man-made, sitting more than 300 feet below the surface. Radiocarbon dating of the wood revealed it was over 7,000 years old. In a place where, by conventional thinking, there should have been no permanent settlements, Ballard's team had discovered what might be the remnants of a Neolithic home. The implications were enormous. This wasn't just a house, it was a timestamp, proof that people had lived there before the flood, that the shores of the prehistoric Black Sea, once a freshwater lake, were inhabited by real, thriving communities. And when the floodwaters came, they didn't just lose their homes, they lost their entire world. But Ballard was cautious. He avoided speculation about Noah or flood myths. He focused on the science. Yet even he admitted what they found matched the timeline. The flood would have happened quickly, faster than the people could adapt. Not in hours or days perhaps, but over weeks and months, as seawater poured relentlessly through the Bosporus, raising water levels as much as 6 inches per day. Imagine living through that, watching your shoreline vanish, your farmland turn to swamp, your fresh water turn brackish. Imagine the panic, the migrations, the cultural trauma. Further analysis of the seafloor revealed more strange features. Long, linear formations beneath the sediment, some suggesting roads or walls. Other sonar returns resembled terraces, man-made leveled areas that once might have served agricultural or ceremonial purposes. There were even reports, though not yet peer-reviewed, of what looked like stone arrangements, circles and squares too precise to be natural formations. If proven, these could point to settlements, villages, even small towns, submerged under hundreds of feet of water. And if this civilization was indeed as advanced as the Varna necropolis suggests, then their loss was profound. Not just in terms of population, but in knowledge. Their metallurgy, their trade, their rituals, all of it washed away, leaving only fragments behind. What we call prehistory is perhaps not the absence of history, but the erasure of it, by time, by disaster, by water. The flood forced the survivors to move, but they didn't just scatter randomly. They followed rivers, the Danube, the Dniester, the Dnieper. These waterways became the highways of migration, channels along which refugees moved inland. As they fled, they brought their culture with them, burial practices, metallurgy, agricultural knowledge. and something else: their stories. These people didn't have written language as we know it, but oral traditions were strong. Stories encoded history, encoded trauma. And so, over generations, the memory of the flood transformed. It became myth, became sacred, became warning, told and retold by campfires, carved into clay, passed from grandmother to child. The flood story traveled across Anatolia, into Mesopotamia, into the Levant. And somewhere along the way, it became the tale we know from Genesis, the story of Noah. But Noah, as we know him, is a late arrival. His story bears uncanny resemblance to earlier accounts. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written in cuneiform on clay tablets more than 1,000 years before the Old Testament, tells of Utnapishtim, a man warned by a god to build a massive boat and save life from a world-ending flood. The Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians all had flood stories, and all seemed to draw from a common source: a catastrophic event etched into cultural memory, so devastating it became foundational. When people think of Noah's Ark, they imagine animals 2 by 2, a bearded patriarch, a rainbow. But if we strip away the theology, what remains is a core human experience: the desperation to survive a world turned hostile, the need to preserve what matters. And in the case of these Black Sea refugees, perhaps that ark wasn't a single boat, but a generation of migration, a diaspora, people carrying fragments of a lost civilization on their backs, in their tools, in their songs. Today, some scholars propose a radical reinterpretation that Noah's Ark wasn't just a symbolic vessel, but a cultural metaphor for preservation of ideas, of technology, of memory. That the real ark was the migration itself. That the survivors of the Black Sea flood became the seed for future civilizations. That the oldest layers of Sumerian society, or even early Anatolian culture, contain the DNA, literal or metaphorical, of a people displaced by one of the greatest floods in human prehistory. The flood changed the Black Sea forever. What had been a freshwater lake became a salty inland sea. Its ecosystem transformed. Marine life from the Mediterranean moved in, but below a certain depth, the water became anoxic, devoid of oxygen, unable to support life. That dark, lifeless layer now acts as a time capsule. Without oxygen, there is little decay, which means that wooden structures, even organic matter, can survive millennia, preserved like insects in amber, waiting to be found. And so the exploration continues. Each year, marine archaeologists mount new expeditions, armed with better tools, deeper dives, and sharper questions. They hope to find more than pottery shards or gold. They hope to find context, settlements, burial grounds, proof of continuity, something that links the myth to the map. There are whispers, still unconfirmed, of even larger structures in deeper water, rectangular patterns that could indicate long walls or enclosures. Satellite imagery from the surface has shown peculiar underwater ridges that don't match natural formations. Drones programmed to scan the seafloor have returned with unusual sonar signatures, but verification is slow. The Black Sea is vast, the work painstaking, and funding is always limited. Yet each small discovery adds a new brushstroke to the canvas. We are beginning to see not just the outline of a lost world, but the shape of its fall. A fall not into obscurity, but into water, into story. For many, the idea that a single flood could have such lasting impact seems far-fetched. But the Black Sea deluge wasn't just a local event. It would have reshaped economies, disrupted food chains, altered weather patterns. It would have been civilizational shockwave. And in a world where most people live by rivers, where proximity to water meant survival, losing access to land wasn't just inconvenient, it was apocalyptic. The refugees would have moved inland, yes, but not all at once. Some would have clung to their homes as long as they could. Some would have built boats. Others would have died. But those who lived carried a burden heavier than gold, the memory of what was lost. And as they rebuilt with stories of a time when the waters came, when gods or fate erased everything. Today we call them myths, but perhaps it's time to see them as something else, as records, as warnings, as echoes of a time when the sea rose and the world changed. The Black Sea remains, quiet, ancient, unknowable. But beneath its surface, the truth is still there, intact, patient, waiting for the next dive, the next scan, the next piece of a puzzle we didn't know was ours.